Coming up here on the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports, my name is Chase Sr. How about this? Could Pete Carroll become the next Niners defensive coordinator to take over for Nick Sorensen if San Francisco cannot land Robert Saleh? Plenty to talk about here, and I have a lot of thoughts. Tim Kawakami with a very fascinating piece, longtime Bay Area sports reporter. First, if you want more Niners offseason coverage and daily videos on the Niners, in-season, off-season, I got you covered. Anytime I'm in front of a camera, on a microphone, I want to give you Niners videos that are insightful, informative, entertaining, thought-provoking, where you have a voice. So if that sounds good, join the movement as we approach 156,000 subs, and lock us in. Hit that sub button right now. Our sponsor for today's show, making everything go, our friends at Game Time. Really appreciate them for being a great partner to work with here at Chat Sports. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. They filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. Curated deals make it easier to find the best price on great seats. The super deal is the best value for that event. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. On-time ticket delivery, lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. There's also event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and a whole lot more. And it's not just an app for sporting events. You can go to concerts, comedy shows, theater events, and a whole lot more. If you do want to go to a San Jose Sharks game, if you want to go to a Golden State Warriors game in San Francisco, plenty of tickets available. Toggle the all-in pricing tool, by the way, to show you your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You get that panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So let's talk Pete Carroll to the San Francisco 49ers here. After pretty much getting fired by the Seattle Seahawks after the 2023 season, Seattle replaced him with Mike Macdonald, the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator, and then Carroll was retained by the Seahawks to pretty much be a consultant for that organization, but he wants to be a head coach again. He interviewed and showed interest in the Chicago Bears job. Chicago elected to hire the hottest coaching candidate on the market in Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. He is also a candidate for the Las Vegas Raiders head coaching job, which is being headlined and led by Tom Brady and Mark Davis. I think with the Raiders, they tried to get Ben Johnson, haven't been able to land another good offensive mind. I think what they could use is a culture changer. And I think that Pete Carroll could be a culture changer for Las Vegas. And he wants to coach again after taking a year off from coaching. He might be in his early 70s, but this dude, his gas tank is still full of energy. And when I'm in my early 70s, I want to look like Pete Carroll, and I want to act like Pete Carroll, because my man still brings it, and he loves ball. And we're discussing this because Tim Kawakami brought it up. He had some interesting reporting, as I'm about to get to. But if the Niners miss out on Robert Saleh, San Francisco could get desperate to find a defensive coordinator. Here's what Tim Kawakami had to say about Carroll. This swiftly could turn into a highly desperate situation if the Niners miss out on Saleh, their top choice for defensive coordinator, and they basically run out of other notable options from the Pete Carroll defensive tree. Maybe it's already pretty desperate, right? Well, here's a solution to ease many anxieties. Why not just check in with Pete Carroll? Yeah, it does sound a little bit crazy. It sounds out of left field. But the Niners don't really seem to have a backup plan here. They have only had interviews formally with 3 candidates. Robert Saleh, who has that second interview with the Jags on Friday. Deshea Townsend, who's an assistant with the Detroit Lions. Their coaching staff is getting gutted right now. And then Brandon Staley, who was an assistant on that defensive staff under defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen, whose primary role was to work with DBs. The DBs performed well for this team last year. Former Chargers head coach, he failed out there. Was a good Rams defensive coordinator in 2020, but some numbers inflated due to that COVID year, no fans being at games. But he was an understudy of Vic Fangio, who brought him in when he was in Chicago. And then when Fangio got that head coaching job with the Denver Broncos, he brought Staley with him. And Vic Fangio, one of the finer defensive minds in the history of football. And this season, he's worked his magic with the Philadelphia Eagles. They've gone from one of the worst defenses in the NFL to the #1 overall defense in the league. And so Vic Fangio disciples are always very intriguing. Kyle Shanahan and the Niners, I will give them credit for this, are willing to be aggressive and they're willing to spend. They are willing to make Saleh the highest paid defensive coordinator in the sport. And think about what Shanahan did last offseason. He targeted Bill Belichick, who wanted to be a head coach, didn't want to be a coordinator. He targeted Jeff Ulbrich, but Robert Saleh wanted to keep him on that Jet staff. He tried to get Steve Spagnuolo after the Super Bowl to be the Niners defensive coordinator after his contract was up, but Spags, as he should have, returned to Kansas City. And because of that, Shanahan had to settle for Sorensen. It's a similar situation now. They're trying to get Saleh. But they're looking around and they're like, well, Dennis Allen might follow Ben Johnson to the Bears. Lou Anarumo went to the Colts. Gus Bradley, he's a Pete Carroll understudy, but his defense with Indy sucked. And so they're looking around with not a lot of options out there. They probably don't want to go with an experienced defensive coordinator again, given what happened with Nick Sorensen. Do they go with a future Hall of Famer in Carroll? More from Kawakami. That is, if the Raiders don't hire Carroll as their head coach, of course. But you never know what the Raiders will do. And Carroll's conversations with Las Vegas are strong indicators that Carroll is quite interested in getting back into the NFL in some way. He and Kyle Shanahan have mutual respect from their days going up against each other, and Carroll is one of the original architects of what's known, because of Carroll, as the Seattle-style defense, the 4-3 cover 3 defensive scheme that Shanahan has always chosen for the Niners. In fact, as the Niners anxiously await for the outcome of Saleh's interview with Jacksonville for their head coaching vacancy, I've heard that Carroll's name has come up inside Niners HQ as an interesting idea at least. But the 49ers also have to wait out things with Carroll, who, according to The Athletic, could be the Raiders' #1 choice now that Ben Johnson has taken the Bears job. So let's summarize some of this, right? Pete Carroll wants to coach again. Defense is his specialty. USC, Seattle, back with New England back in the day in the 1990s. He runs the Niners' preferred scheme. His name has come up. And if Kyle Shanahan wants energy, Pete Carroll has energy. And speaking of energy, Tim Kawakami, he said energy is a key word in this Niners defensive coordinator search I've heard. The implication being that Steve Wilks in 2023 and Nick Sorensen last year didn't do much to rev up their players during their one-year DC tenures. Saleh, who was Shanahan's first Niners DC from 2017 to 2020 before leaving to take the top spot with New York, definitely brings energy wherever he goes. So does DeMeco Ryans, who replaced Saleh as the Niners DC. Then he left after 2 years to take over for the Houston Texans. Carroll, at 73, I don't know if I said he's 72 earlier, but early 70s, is still probably the most energetic candidate that the Niners could possibly consider. Just think that he could return to the Niners defensive coordinator role he first had 30 years ago from 1995 to 1996 under George Seifert, just missing Mike Shanahan's 49ers offensive coordinator tenure by 1 year. How about that? Pete Carroll, way back in the day, maybe returning back to the Bay. Yeah, I got bars here. The 49ers, I will say this with the energy thing, they were lacking serious juice on the sideline. It's part of the reason why Shanahan wanted Steve Wilks to come from the booth to the sideline. Nick Sorensen, very much like Kyle Shanahan, stands there, isn't really energetic. He's always looking at that play sheet. Then you see DeMeco Ryans and Robert Saleh. They're rah-rah guys. They're getting players into it, getting players fired up. Chris Kocurek is like that as well. Can you see Pete Carroll with the Air Monarchs on the sideline, running around, getting fired up, chewing that big honk of bubble gum, getting in the face of Fred Warner after a big forced fumble? Yeah, I freaking love you, 54. That's what the Niners need a little bit. Something to balance out Kyle Shanahan kind of being that cool, calm, and collected type of dude. So Shanahan, I think he's willing to hire a big personality and an accomplished coach. He attempted to hire Bill Belichick. And so I don't think that takes him away from hiring Carroll, who's a big personality and an accomplished coach. We'll see what happens. Interesting stuff right here. Wanted to discuss it here on the show. So what say you? Should the Niners target Pete Carroll to be defensive coordinator? H for hire. D for a different choice. I want to see where you're all at.